to see what we have now in gaming is pretty unbelievable. And it kind of makes me question, should we stop this? Welcome back to the Raynday Gaming Show. Today, we ask the question, are video games becoming too realistic? I'm your host, Rain the Rock Johnson. I'm just kidding, it's Raynday. And I'm here to talk about this new game that has set the world on fire. In just one day, it's gotten over 70 million impressions, 20 million views, and has had people arguing over the internet that video games have taken the next step to being too immersive and potentially encouraging children and teens and people who are susceptible to playing these games to take real world action and basically get training for some of these things we've been seeing in our news cycle that we want to stop seeing, tragedies around the world in schools, in places like that. But hey, I want to get your opinion first because we're going to talk about it. It all started with Alexander Spindler, a Sankey programmer and co-director of the French game Unrecord. This is what it's called. I want to show you these 2 minutes because for me, this is what started this whole podcast idea. Just watch this and let me know how you feel.
Shots fired! Shots fired!
That shot was wild.
Where the fuck is Oscar?
Needless to say, there was a lot to unpack from that video. And I personally think that it reminded me of body cam footage that, disturbingly, I've seen way too much of in this current climate. For me, I was a little shocked at this. And I thought, yeah, the impact of this being in the wrong hands or in the wrong setting, let's say we make it open world and someone can just roam the real looking streets of LA with this type of capability and, start shooting things. I really did feel like, have we gotten to a point where it's too far? In fact, it's stirred up a lot of conversation, and Alexander went on to actually answer these questions in a tweet saying, after we had this huge reveal, we had to answer some of your burning thoughts. A lot of it was, is it going to be pro-police or anti-police? Which, I mean, to me, it's so funny because it is a game. It is not virtual reality, yet these real-world political conversations that we're having in America are coming up about this game because people aren't associating it with a game. It's looking really real. They're also developing it at a faster pace, optimizing. It's on Unreal Engine 5. Just so you know, Epic Games makes Unreal Engine, how they're making all those big bucks. But to get to the podcast and to start with it, I'm going to talk about 5 things for the vote for and the vote against games becoming more emerged here at the Raynday Gaming Show. Because immersive, because I think there are some good reasons why games can help be a part of reality in a positive way, just like AI. And I think there are some negatives that we have to pay attention to. The first thing that I want to talk about too is that we are going to introduce peer-reviewed studies. I had a couple of a little minutes to research some things, so I'm going to be referencing those in our points. So make sure to give me your thoughts on what you think. And right now, maybe set up a thought. What do you think about gaming? Is it going too far? Are you excited? Are you a little worried? Hopefully we answer that in this podcast here. The first thing for me is immersion and learning, right? The argument in favor, number one, for games being developed so that they become more real and more integrated into life is that they can help with our immersion in life when we face similar problems. According to a study by University of Rochester, players of realistic video games, they were found to have higher levels of immersion and it increased learning and engagement. You know, this is true because the educational games, they stimulate real world stimulus. They provide an opportunities for players to practice problem solving and decision-making skills in a safe environment. And I think that that is one of the best ways we've seen gaming in the history of television and TV and movies utilized. Whether it's let's say it's even just a simulation of what you might do in a tough situation, you get to play that out multiple times again. So you do actually get that preparation without putting yourself in danger. And we don't hope it's Ender's Game where at the end of it, you find out you're actually really doing something, but I do think that there's something to the immersion, the problem solving, the puzzles. There are plenty of games that kind of give that, and a lot of mobile games too, that I think personally help people's brains stay sharp. My dad, he plays, a word puzzle game every single night. So I think for me, there is this benefit of having games continue to have real world application. But let's take a second too and look at Unrecord and go, whew, what real world application is that type of game giving us? Again, just a question. I want you to think about that as we go through these points. I'm not decided, but I will give you my thought at the end after we talk about this of why I might be wary, more wary than I was ever before. The second thing is improved physical health. Okay, this is another clear benefit of the right type of gaming. And although not many of us do this right now, I mean, I don't know last time I had the Wii Fit band, but I'll tell you what. There are some moments that I played Wii tennis and I've done some of these things and I've said, the Nintendo boxing, I've been like, I'm working up a sweat. And COVID, don't act like you didn't do it. They did do a study that shows there is some positive impact to those games as well. They stimulate physical activity, the dancing, the boxing, the sports. It's a fun way to exercise. And it is I think, an immersive way to exercise. They also found with the American Heart Association that active video games can be an effective alternative to traditional exercise for people who find it difficult to stay motivated. So again, another way to do something healthy for your brain, for your body, if you're not motivated to do it in the real world. And I think that is one of the things that are great about not only just gaming, but in AI as well. You don't want to do a ton of research, right? But AI might be able to help you get some of that research done. So then you can still use the research, write your own paper, and present it without kind of the legwork that would have thrown you off. I think gaming has that potential. But what do you guys think about that? Let me know as well. Number 3, this is obviously kind of where we're at right here. Number 3, this is maybe the biggest one and the scariest one in terms of in favor. And you can almost count it as a halfway in favor, halfway against. And it's realistic video games can drive innovation and advancements in technology. I mean, games that push the limits of what's possible in terms of graphics, in terms of sound and artificial intelligence, they have a ripple effect on other industries, leading to new products. They lead to new services, new revenue streams, new ways of thinking about the world. We all know that's true. And as a gamer who has been gaming since games look like blocks, moving blocks, and Pong was in existence, bouncing a white moving block against bigger white moving blocks, trying to get it past the other white moving block on the other side of the screen. To see what we have now in gaming is pretty unbelievable. And it kind of makes me question, should we stop this? And I think that right now it's too early to stop it. But in the same way that people like Elon are calling out for AI, as we turn to the negatives, I do think that we should halt it and really be conscious about it, because our lives are becoming more and more integrated than they ever have before. The stuff we see online is actually desensitizing us a lot. I'm going to tell you what, on Twitter, I have seen people have their demise, and I'm saying that in a polite way for YouTube, but if you're an adult, you know what I'm talking about, multiple times a day. And I'm noticing this crazy trend. You tell me this. Are you this type of person or are you not? Because I wonder if you're really right about it. And I wonder what I would do in that situation. I think I know what I'd do. I sheesh. I mean, I know what I would try to do. I know what I wouldn't do. But what's amazing is it's caught on camera. And there's so many other people catching it on camera. I've never seen more tragedy caught by more people from more angles. It's like they're shooting a reality TV show, but no one's getting paid. What are we doing? We're desensitizing ourselves. I saw a kid turn around to a man who was pleading for his life and take a selfie. If that's not telling you that we are becoming desensitized to violence, I don't know what else will. We're seeing it too often. We're being pandered at because it gets engagement, and we're kind of praising the wrong thing. So I think in that regard, gameplay that comes out that too easily stimulates some of those situations, we have to take a real strong look at as a society and as a developer. I think as a developer, you have to decide, what are we going to do with this? Like, is this, right now it looks like a lot of body cam footage of somebody going in and shooting somebody. I don't know what they're doing, but I just got to say, we got to figure out what our big purpose is and understand the way our society is at. I want you guys to think about that too. Let's go into the negatives now. Let's discuss the potential dangers of video games becoming too realistic. I think the first one is addiction and mental health, particularly. One argument about these realistic video games is the potential for those to have really negative impacts on your health and on your addiction. The American Psychological Association said excessive gaming can lead to addiction-like symptoms. And I know that this is true. I've seen friends have some pretty addictive gaming habits and patterns. Not that it's bad, but it is pretty addictive, like anything else can be. And with some gamers, they experience negative effects such as depression, anxiety, and then poor academic performance. The more immersive and realistic the game, the higher risk of addiction. Now, this is one of those things we do really have to be careful about because it sneaks up on you. You don't ever realize it's happening till it's happening. And you find that your life in the real world isn't really as exciting as it could be. Your relationships are failing. You're not putting in time because you don't care as much because that's not your motivation. You're wanting to get online and experience that fun, but it's an escape from the reality of the world. There are people who go through this. We know the gaming community has a lot of anxiety, a lot of mental disorder, a lot of depression. We know that. We know the mental health in the gaming world is tough. Being more realistic, hey man, I'm the first person to tell you that I loved the remake of the Steven Spielberg movie, Ernest Cline book, Ready Player One. I want that to be a reality. But when you really look at it, that person's life is terrible. The world has transitioned to where everyone lives online, and that's where things happen. And that's where you fall in love, and that's where you're worth something. And this dude lives in a trailer on top of 20 other trailers in his real life. Like, I don't want us to go there, but that's one of the things we have to keep in mind. Where do we start putting more of our energy? Okay, the second thing is desensitization and violence. I told you guys about this before, but this is my biggest concern. And I think this game kind of brings that up in terms of conversation. Tell me a moment that you've been impacted by a video game. Tell me a moment that you've been impacted by media. Movies, TV, pop culture. Tell me a moment. Think about it. I know that there's a time when maybe there's a show or a trend or a TikTok something or a game or a superhero movie or a character or something that has made you dress a little differently, made you say something that you wouldn't have said, made you reference something that you wouldn't have, made you do a stupid joke in front of your friends and then drop down and do the Spider-Man pose because the new Spider-Man movie came out. You know that these things happen. We do get influenced by media, but to what degree and to what and where's the influence pushing us? Studies have shown that playing violent video games can increase aggression and reduce empathy towards victims of violence. This was in a study of the Journal of Experimental Social Psychology. Players of violent video games, they were more likely to tolerate real-life violence, making them less likely to intervene in violent situations. And I go back to the kid, not saying this was him, and not, I'm just saying taking a selfie over someone who's struggling for their life when you could do anything but that, anything but take a selfie to help them if you could. Imagine watching someone struggling that much in front of you and you get your phone out. You have to live with that for the rest of your life. That is a massive deal. And you got it on camera too. And people are going to go, why don't you just go down there and just stay with them in those last moments? You have no idea the impact that's going to have being desensitized to those moments because then that person will grow up. They'll have they'll realize, wow, what did I do? What was that? I would never wish one of my children or my family members to be in a situation like that and have people just taking pictures of them, posting them on Instagram. What's the color of a square you post to support someone who's just not alive anymore because you filmed them? What color square is that? These things are tough to talk about, but they have to be talked about. And this game has kind of made the rounds on the internet for a good reason. It's talked about that, you know, realistic video games can be the future. They can help advance us. They can help create situations where we're getting real world experiences we never would have been able to get in the real world to prepare us for some tragedies or for some great moments and be better prepared to execute when they come. But while they provide those opportunities for learning, they also lead to some addiction. They also can really desensitize us to violence, and the negative impacts on mental health are not to be aware. I'm a gamer. This channel is all about gaming, you know, talking about life through the lens of gaming, through the lens of being athletic. You know, I've been a D1 athlete. I was drafted to the MLS. I've been a writer. I sold my first storybook animation to YouTube last year. Sterling K. Brown from This Is Us narrated it. I've gone all over the world. I've started a YouTube channel. I've been a content creator for the last 7-8 years. I've worked at a game studio for 3 years. I've lived a lot of life. I've done a lot of things. I'll tell you what, I still have gravitated towards gaming because I love this. This is a fantasy world in your real world there's something so special about it. But we got to make sure that even though I feel that way, what we're putting out to the world, you know, can't be manipulated in a certain way to where we start seeing negative impacts in our society too much. But I want to leave it to you. What is your thought on this? Should we start to, you know, put some limits on these games? Should we be okay with games like this coming out and let the world do what they do with it? Are video games becoming too realistic? And should we always keep that layer of it's a video game in terms of our capabilities of graphics versus trying to make it feel like we're actually in real life? Implications are crazy. And that's not for me to answer, but I want you to answer in the comment section below. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video. Remember to never give up, never stop gaming. Subscribe if you're new to this show because we talk about stuff like this all the time. And as always, I'll see you guys next time.